We can be.
We must be the first generation
to end extreme poverty.
The generation
Most determined
to fight injustice
and inequalities.
The generation that saves the planet from climate change.
And this is how it will get done. The global goals.
A 15-year plan
For everyone, everywhere.
with no one left behind.
We will live in a world
where nobody
anywhere lives in extreme poverty.
Where no one
goes hungry.
Where no one
wakes in the morning
asking if there will be food today.
We will live in a world where no child has to die of
Diseases we know how to cure.
And where proper health care
is a lifelong right for us all.
We will live in a world
where everyone
Goes to school.
and education gives us the knowledge
and skills
for a fulfilling life.
We will live in a world where all girls and all women have equal opportunities
to thrive
And be powerful and safe.
We cannot succeed if half the world is held back.
we will live in a world
where all people can get clean water
and proper toilets
at home,
At school.
and at work.
We will live in a world where there is sustainable energy for everyone.
Heat, light,
and power for the whole planet.
Without destroying the planet.
We'll live in a world where economies prosper.
a new wealth
Lead to decent jobs.
For everyone.
And we will live in a world where our industry,
our infrastructure
And our
Best innovations
Are not just used to make money, but to make all our lives better.
We will live in a world
Where prejudices and extremes of inequality
are defeated.
inside our countries,
And between different countries.
where people live in cities and communities
that are safe, progressive,
and support everyone who lives there.
where we replace
what we consume.
Planet where we put back what we take out of the earth.
We live in a world that is decisively rolling back to threat climate change.
where we restore
and protect the life in our oceans and seas.
or restore
and protect
Life on land.
The forests,
animals, the earth itself.
with peace between and inside countries.
Where all governments are open.
And answer to us for what they do at home and abroad.
And the justice rules.
With everyone equal before the law.
Where all countries and we their people
Work together.
partnerships of all kinds
To make these goals a reality.
These are the United Nations global goals.
for sustainable development.
Let's get to work.
we can be. We can be.
We must be the first generation
To end extreme poverty.
The generation
Most determined
to fight injustice
And inequalities.
The generation that saves the planet from climate change.
And this is how it will get done. The global goals.
A 15-year plan
For everyone, everywhere.
With no one left behind.
We will live in a world
where nobody
anywhere lives in extreme poverty.
Where no one
goes hungry.
Where no one
Wakes in the morning
asking if there will be food today.
We will live in a world where no child has to die of
Diseases we know how to cure.
And where proper health care
is a lifelong right for us all.
We will live in a world
where everyone
Goes to school.
and education gives us the knowledge
and skills
for a fulfilling life.
We will live in a world where all girls and all women have equal opportunities
to thrive
And be powerful and safe.
We cannot succeed if half the world is held back.
we will live in a world
where all people can get clean water
and proper toilets
at home,
At school.
and at work.
We will live in a world where there is sustainable energy for everyone.
Heat, light,
and power for the whole planet.
Without destroying the planet.
We'll live in a world where economies prosper.
a new wealth
Lead to decent jobs.
For everyone.
And we will live in a world where our industry,
our infrastructure
And our
best innovations
Are not just used to make money, but to make all our lives better.
We will live in a world
Where prejudices and extremes of inequality
are defeated.
inside our countries,
And between different countries.
where people live in cities and communities
that are safe, progressive,
and support everyone who lives there.
where we replace
what we consume.
Planet where we put back what we take out of the earth.
We live in a world that is decisively rolling back to threat climate change.
where we restore
and protect the life in our oceans and seas.
will restore and protect
life on land,
The forests,
animals,
the earth itself.
with peace between and inside countries.
where all governments are open.
An answer to us for what they do at home and abroad.
And the justice rules.
With everyone equal before the law.
where all countries and we their people
Work together.
Partnerships of all kinds.
To make these goals a reality.
These are the United Nations global goals.
for sustainable development.
Let's get to work.
All right, top of the morning to you all joining us across the nation. I believe it's a wonderful Friday morning, and we are glad to have each and every one of you on the call, joining on YouTube. And we are so glad to have you, Dr. Adenike, on the call this morning to facilitate the masterclass session on SDGs and climate, the implementation strategies for its adaptation and mitigation. Thank you this morning. We really appreciate the fact that you took your time to facilitate today's session. We sincerely appreciate you, ma'am. This morning, we are going to be having the first module, which is on SDGs and climate change, and we have a great expert in facilitating today's session in person of Dr. Adenike Akinshimolu, who is a Vanguard Fellow at the University of Birmingham, a Senior Research Fellow at Afe Babalola University, and also the founder of Green Institute. Dr. Adenike is an expert in the field of environmental sustainability with over 10 years of experience in education and research. She is the National Geographic Educator and a member of the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network. She's committed to finding bold and effective solutions to corporate challenges, including the fight against climate change. This morning, we are so glad and blessed to have you on this call, Ma. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Emmanuel. How you doing?
I'm doing very fine. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your presence.
All right. So can you see my screen?
Absolutely, yes.
All right, great. So hello, everyone, and welcome to the masterclass on SDG and climate change implementation strategies for its adaptation and mitigation. So I'm going to be specifically talking about the Officially Green campaign. So my name is Adenike Akinshimolu, founder, director of Green Institute, Vanguard Fellow, University of Birmingham, and member United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network. So as young people, we have a unique role to play in addressing the urgent challenges of climate change and achieving the sustainable development goals. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to explore different ways, discuss the link between climate change and SDGs, and explore different mitigation and adaptation strategies. So, and I hope by the end of this session that you will leave feeling inspired, informed, equipped to take action in your communities and beyond. And we must actually, for us to effect that change, we must act. We must think global, but act locally. And I encourage all of us to actively participate, ask questions, and hopefully together, collectively, we can work towards a sustainable future. So without further ado, let's get started. So we're all familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, which is adopted by the United Nations member states in 2015, which is a universal call to action to end poverty, to protect the planet, to ensure peace and prosperity for all. And there's 17 of them. They cover a wide range, as we can see, for clean water, affordable clean energy, and so on and so forth. But what we're really concerned today is we're concerned about the number 13, which is the climate action. And we know that climate action is closely linked to the SDG because it has the potential to undermine progress towards achieving them. We can solve climate action, then you can solve other problems like poverty, like hunger, like economic insecurity or food insecurity. For example, climate change can impact food security by reducing crop yields. It can increase the risk of water scarcity. It can exacerbate poverty and inequalities and threaten ecosystem and biodiversity. But for us to address these challenges, it is very crucial for us to develop and implement strategies that simultaneously promote sustainable development and mitigate the impacts of the climate change. And this is where the link between the SDG and the climate change becomes very apparent. So by working towards achieving the SDG, we can also contribute to mitigating and adapting the climate change. So I'm just going to show you some graphs. We look at this graph. This graph is showing the anomaly. Now just give me a second. So this graph is showing the anomaly, monthly temperature anomaly, and you can see that the world is currently going through. You can see the rate at which the climate change in 2019, the use of renewable energy, for instance, such as wind and power, has been shown to prevent the emission of about 22.1 gigatons of carbon dioxide globally. And if you're just looking at the graph, you can see around 2019, 2020, there was a dip in the graph, which shows that because during COVID, most people were home and a lot of industrial activities were altered or were put almost completely to stop. So you can see that global emission kind of reduced, but as soon as activities resumes again, we start emitting due to our anthropogenic activities. And also, just looking at this graph is also showing the per capita CO2 emission. And just looking at the graph, what I did was so we can compare United States, China, United Kingdom, and just have a view of how those countries compare to even Africa as a continent. You see that Africa as a continent, we're not really emitting a lot of CO2 per capita. We're not, the emission is not a lot. The top three is US, which is about 14.8, China about 8.05, and you have the United Kingdom about 5.15. Nigeria is just right about 0.64. So obviously the US, China, and UK are the top emitters of greenhouse gases, accounting for more than half of global emissions. And it is worthy to know that the US exited the Paris Agreement on climate change, but in 2021, they rejoined the agreement and pledged to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 50 to 52%, below 2005 levels by 2030. So moving along, now, what does it mean talking about climate change adaptation? How do we adapt to climate change? What kind of things, what kind of strategies can we put into place to adapt to climate change, involves to prepare and to cope with the impacts of climate change that's already occurring or likely to occur in the future? And this can be achieved through one, building resilience. So we can build resilience to extreme weather events such as sea level rise, such as changing precipitation patterns by improving infrastructure and services and protecting natural ecosystem and promoting disaster risk measures. We can also diversifying our crops, so adapting agriculture to changing weather patterns. We can look into things like aquaponics, can look at hydroponics, and we can just diversify, adopt new irrigation techniques, use drought-tolerant crop varieties. Also, early warning signs. We can also establish early warning systems to reduce the impacts of disasters like flood, like storms, by providing timely and accurate information to affected communities. We can also do what we call the coastal protection, because the ocean ecosystem or the marine ecosystem is very, very important. And protecting the coastal areas from sea level rise and storm surges through measures as beach nourishment, seawalls, and the mangrove restoration. And also there are other things like water management system, developing rainwater harvesting system, water storage facility, and efficient irrigation techniques. But just looking at the figures, in 2020, there are about 116 countries with a national adaptation plan to address climate change impacts, and up to 80 countries. That's 160 countries, and that's an improvement from just 80 countries in 2015. So there's a lot of progress in terms of climate change adaptation. We can also look by 2030, an estimated about 300 million people in coastal areas are expected to be at risk from sea level rise. And that is why it's also very important that we need to start looking at strategies to adapt. Now, let's look at climate mitigation. And when we talk about mitigation, it involves reducing the amount of greenhouse gas emissions through that contributes to the overall global warming. And this can also be achieved by now putting things in place, like using a renewable source of energy, solar, wind, hydro, geothermal power to replace fossil fuel, or even not, maybe not replace completely, but at least have more of renewable power energy, and then energy efficiency, improving energy efficiency of energy consumption in our buildings, in transport and industry, to reduce energy demand. We talk about carbon capture and storage. Talk about afforestation, which is the cheapest way for climate change mitigation, afforestation and reforestation. And we talk about sustainable agriculture. Now, this is a lot of things are very theoretical. So what I want to talk about is how do we now implement SDGs and climate change strategies? And these things you can find, like you go online, you read about it, you get those kind of information. So what I'm going to do today is I want to make it more practical. So I'm going to use the Green Institute in Nigeria as a case study and see how we started from a grassroots and what we've been able to do in a very little short time. And from that way, it's something that we can easily add. So it's more practical than thinking about it from a theoretical standpoint. So how did the Green Institute started? So it started with a class. So I took up a role in a community college in rural community, more specifically Ondo town. And I started working as a lecturer about 2013. And when I asked my student a very, very simple question: what does it mean to go green? And it was received with blank stares. So of course, you're talking about so many years back. We're talking about 10 years back, not now that everybody talks about green, green, green. At that time, it wasn't too popularized. So it was just like, it was kind of like a foreign concept. What does it mean? And so we said, okay, this is a problem. Why are people not going green? Why are students not really interested in the idea of green? And it's very simple. If you look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, you look at, for a human being to be able to live to the fullest, they need the basic physiological need. You need food, they need water, they need warmth, they need rest. So if you're telling people to go green, it's like, I still have to source for this, I still have to source for that. So it might be hard for them to take. Going green might fall under maybe almost esteem needs of self-actualization. So now, the question now is, how do you get people that are still thinking about the basic needs, that don't still have access to the very basic of basic needs? How do you get them to start thinking green? Or maybe they're actually even being green already, because I just showed you some graphs that says that the graph that shows that even Nigeria as a country, we're not even in the top countries that are emitting lots of greenhouse gases. So maybe they are doing it, maybe they just don't know what it is. So step one, what we did was we created something called the Green Book. And so called my students, this is the Green Book. This is what it means to go green. This is what it means this is what sustainability means. This is what climate change means. The problem was that they came to class and it was more of a route learning. Oh, let's just write the exam and pass the exam. I noticed that they were not actually really learning. So we're like, okay, this book is not working. So we went to step two. So step two, we went into advocacy, which is we spoke with the provost of the college at that time. And we said, sir, can you exemplify the idea of going green? We're talking about emissions and things like that. Instead of you riding, bringing your cars to campus, can you ride a bicycle to office, since you live very close, you live inside the campus. And fresh at that time, not now. Might not be fresh at this time, but at that time it was really fresh, because it's like, wow, a whole provost of a school is actually riding bicycle to come to work. So students they were getting interested at what is this green idea is about. But we got into another problem, because some students were now like, well, the guy is actually a rich guy, so he can afford to ride bicycle. After all, he has a car in his house and things like that. So we said we need to connect people. So what we're doing right now is an indirect way of mitigation. How do we connect people first? You have to first educate people. People have to be aware of what they need to do before going into the complexities of things. So we said, let's use everyday people. Let's use the student union president. Let's use the Miss Campus. let's use lecturers. Let them start talking about the idea of going green. And if you can look at this, you can see some of the things that I've talked about in the adaptation, sustainable agriculture, reducing emissions, our renewable energy. So we started incorporating it into everyday lifestyle of students. So saying, somebody's saying, oh, I eat organic food, you should too. You're never too old to ride a bicycle. You should, I love cycling, you should try it too, and so on and so forth. Nature is beautiful, I dispose my waste. So people started connecting to it, and students coming to us and asking questions. And some students, they just want their picture on the banner because we started putting this banner on campus. So they're like, I want my picture on the banner. And then, okay, you want your picture on the banner, that's fine, but maybe you should join us. Step 3, what we did was, so now we're getting their attention. Now we need to teach them the basic, the very, very basic of going green. So Day 3, we organized a seminar and a day of action. So in that seminar, we taught them what it means to go green. We taught them the basic and the very, very basic idea of climate change, what causes climate change. We went into the basics of the science of it, ozone layer depletion and all that. And then we started telling day of action, we get students to start planting flowers and doing a lot of things and cleaning the environment. Most of these people that you're seeing in this picture, that was a picture of about 10 years back. Some of them are working for UNESCO, some of them are working for United Nations, some of them are working for a lot of organizations. Some of them are scientists in their various fields, and they're applying these sustainability principles that they learned about 10 years ago, they're applying it to their everyday life. So we went into the basic science of things, of ozone layer depletion, which I won't go into, the causes of climate change. We went into that, and we showed them in real time. Now, what we now did was we now asked questions. We said, when you think about the word green, what comes to your mind? So we asked the students during the seminar, say, when you think about green, what comes to your mind? And a lot of them started, these are some of the answers. Assuming this was an interactive session, I would have asked the audience too, but since this is not really interactive, I'm just going to get, so these are some of the things that some of the students, these are some of the ideas that they came about. They talk about growth. Some said peace, some said healthy, some say the Nigerian flag, some mention some GSM company that has a green branded logo of some brand, some say plant. So what I asked them was that if all these things are green, I mean, if all these words are associated with going green, it means that going green is something positive. So if it's something positive, so we're still in the mitigation stage, you still try to encourage them. So we say, if going green is something positive, or is I associated with a lot of positive ideas, why are people not going green? And the simple answer is very simple: corruption, right? And when you think about corruption, you think about corruption from a political standpoint, from a governance standpoint. But when you're thinking about corruption in an environmental sense, you're thinking about corruption, and you're thinking about corruption in excess. Not corruption that, oh, somebody's embezzling money, but when you do things, for instance, you take your sachet water or something, you throw it on the floor. That itself is already corruption. Yeah. So we started showing people, look at this picture. This picture was taken in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria, where there are a lot of oil exploration activities going on. And this is where the effluents, some of the anthropogenic activities, some of the effluents are discharged into the environment, which is not good. I mean, imagine drinking from this kind of water, imagine even planting on this kind of water. So and this is the reality of some people. And this right here is a classic example of corruption, because normally when you discharge, when there are effluents after production of oil or whatever industrial activity, we're supposed to actually treat those the water before discharging it into the environment. But this is the reality of some people. So we started telling kids, like, what the first way to mitigate the effects of climate change is, first we have to reduce our waste. So when very basic, again, these are 10 years, this is like 10 years ago. So now this is common knowledge, but then it wasn't common knowledge. So use your email. You have to projects, for instance, projects in some Nigerian universities, people still underwrite projects as of that time, and written projects and print, when you can just email those projects, and that will reduce the paper use, and indirectly you're also contributing to afforestation, you're also preventing deforestation and things like that. So now what I also did was I showed my students this picture and I said, where is everyone? This is France, this is Paris. It's beautiful. I said, yeah. They said, yeah, it's beautiful. I'd like to go there someday. I said, yeah, but this is our reality, right? This is our reality. If you see this picture, you want to be there. But this is our own reality. This is our own environment. But why are we doing this? Is because we as citizens, we're contributing to this. So talking about climate change mitigation, you can't talk about the mitigation aspects without talking about the everyday activities of human beings that actually contribute to this. So then what's the solution? Now, an example of an adaptation is what we're now doing, say, okay, you have a lot of trash. Let's talk about trash for education. So we started a program on campus then to say, bring in your trash and so you bring in your trash and then we give you some kind of points. And then from that point, you can use it as take a coding class or use it to get a book or some kind of education material. Of course, there are a lot of models nowadays. You have trash for education kind of models, you have trash for cash models, and lots of incentives for just donating or recycling your trash. Then we started getting students to reduce their visual pollutions, and you can see some of our ambassadors then acting and making sure that they're doing something on campus to reduce their waste and everything. So we also encourage students to start planting flowers and trees. So we started adopting it into the curriculum. So if you're maybe a biology lecturer, you're teaching something about photosynthesis, then we can say, okay, let them do a student project, let them start planting flowers and trees in school. And you can see this is like a beer land, and you see students that they're trying to do a lot of things. If you go to this community now, again, this was about 8 years back. When you see this community now, what it looks like is not what it is now. You see a lot of trees everywhere. Most of these trees are really big. They become shade. People park their cars on there now. And so, but this is at the initial stage when everybody was contributing their own quota to, and also they're just collaborating while they're doing that and making new friends. Also, we also encourage conservation of energy. For us to adapt, we have to look at alternative sources of energy that are renewable, that are clean, and are safe. So we came up with an idea, which this was done as a student project, which in collaboration, I think, with EcoBank. So they came up with a solar-powered, then, again, 10 years ago, not now, a solar-powered ATM machine on campus. Then it was a really big deal because, of course, the idea of solar wasn't really in vogue. It wasn't really popular at that time. So it was a very good student project. And these are some of the students that were testing to see if everything works. So it was a collaboration with the technicians, with the physics students, and people just putting this together. And we also encourage people to conserve water because every drop counts. And there are people in some communities that do not have access to clean water and just doing things in excesses. And it goes back to my point on corruption. Just reducing the kind of things when you don't need something, you don't need it. So just trying to do that would actually mitigate, because it's better to mitigate sometimes than to adapt. It's better to prevent it from the source than to actually now start looking for what are the ways that we do it, that we now need to solve this. We're also encouraging green your transportation. So on campus, we started encouraging people to ride bicycles on campuses and just doing that and having fun. And we also encourage students to choose organic food and products. So we started putting out vegetable farms and animal husbandry and things like that. And you can see that students are beginning to grow different kind of crops, easy crops. We started encouraging hydroponics, use of water to grow crops, crops that naturally you might not see in this environment, like strawberries and things like that. So, and these are some of the students, again, 10 years ago, most of the students now, they're doing wonderful things and doing big things in their own space. And of course, the campus also produces palm oil and try to see if they can adopt sustainable ways in the production of that palm oil. And also selling it, because the idea of sustainability eventually is not just is also you have to think about the people, the planet, and the profit. So also economic sustainability is also very, very important. So, and we also encourage people to raise eco-conscious kids. which is starting from the very grassroots, which is getting kids to be eco-conscious. So we started a Green Kids Club. So again, we started from the university level, get the university students to understand the idea of green. Now get those university students to give back to the community by training younger kids to learn about the climate change and how they can contribute in their own ways to that. So also started, which I've talked about briefly, talk about promoting social entrepreneurship, students being agro farmers, and also students being entrepreneurs. And in those days, like this picture is a picture of is a business. The guy in the middle started something called Send Me, and what it does is on campus, I think it was Valentine's Day, and this guy has his bicycle and he says, oh, and his friend said, oh, I want to deliver flowers and all these gifts to my babe. And the guy said, oh, I can deliver it for you, but you just have to pay me small money. So it was just like a joke. And the guy said, okay, I'll give you money. You just deliver the letters, deliver everything. And he did it. And he said, oh, this can actually be a business idea. So he started getting more bicycles, getting his friends, getting more bicycle, getting his friends to join him in the business. And what they do is it's a delivery service. So whatever you need to deliver on campus or in the campus environment, they deliver for you at a very reduced cost. So what it's doing is making money from doing that, is reducing emissions because it's mode of transportation, it's bicycle, and also it's keeping fit while doing that. So all in all, it's a win-win situation. And these are our first ambassadors. We call them the ministers, the first very set of our ministers that started the Green Campus. They call it the Green Campus Initiative at that time. And then we started building that model. We started spreading to different universities across Nigeria and spreading and going to secondary schools and spreading the ideas of going green and inspiring people to even start organizations that are green oriented. And also just giving back to our communities. Again, some of those people, like the lady in the picture right now, she's the director of Bramble. Bramble is an alternative learning space in Badon. So we just started giving back to the community and just telling people that they can do a lot of things to prevent or to mitigate than to let it happen. And the dream at that time was to start from campuses, that campuses are environmentally conscious, where people, separate their waste by types. Our campuses to be very serene in terms of the beauty of it. Having lots of trees everywhere for even carbon capturing and sequestration. And just to also go into having most of our kids to have a practically oriented education. So not looking at people graduating and they don't have jobs. So they can look at how can they solve climate change issues. And in doing that, they can come up with businesses or ideas that can do that. So that was the dream at that time. And also to make sure that on campus, there's a cordial relationship between staff and students so that they can work together as a collective for our sustainable future. And the overall dream for the Green Campus Initiative at that time was to have green and sustainable campuses across Nigeria. And then having do that, we started having ambassadors in different schools. So when the Green Campus Initiative started, we had ambassadors in about 37 schools across Nigeria. And then from there, we moved on from Nigeria to other countries, South Africa, moving on to other countries. And after we now saw that, okay, the Green Campus idea is a good idea. It works. It shows that it's scalable. So we move into the institute. So now we established something called the Green Institute. So we have something now called the Green Institute. So what's the mission of the Green Institute? The mission of our Green Institute is to build the next generation of sustainability leaders through education, through advocacy, and through innovation. And we believe that by empowering individuals and communities with the knowledge and the requisite tools to take action, we can create a healthier and more sustainable world for all. So that's how the idea of the Green Institute started. Just by looking at, the idea started as a simple idea from trying to get to, from how do we contribute to the sustainable development goals? How do we, focus on SDG 13, which is climate action? And just by focusing on that idea metamorphosizes into a whole institute. So what is our thematic focus? We focus on the 5 E's, which is environment, education, energy, economies, and equity. Equity, empowering marginalized community, making sure that they have the same opportunities like their counterparts. Environment, creating sustainable solutions for a healthy planet. Education, driving change through education for sustainability. And energy, promoting efficient renewable energy for a better future. So those are our thematic focus. At the Green Institute, we have a lot of events to focus on our thematic focus. We just concluded the World Water Day. Our next event is the World Environment Day. Comes up at June 5th. It's an annual symposium. So everyone is invited. We have another event for environmental law and sustainable development coming up, I think in October. An hybrid event at Tafabala University and online, of course. And we have the World Sustainability Conference, an hybrid event coming up with University of Birmingham, and of course, virtually for people that can come. So some of the events, and some of these events are also a way for people to come and dialogue and think about ideas for mitigating and adapting the effects of climate change. And also not just talk about it, but hopefully people can network and form partnerships and collaborations that can drive action. And we also do a lot of research because, of course, for you to talk about the mitigating and adaptation, you have to do a lot of research to look at the best strategies and to tackle this issue. So we do lots of research. And one of our active research is in the Ilaje community. We're very focused on the coastal women in climate crisis. And what we're doing is we're using the Ilaje women as case study. And we found out that, so I'm just going to go through this very fast because of our time, that climate crisis definitely is not gender neutral, and that women and girls experience the greatest impacts of climate change, which amplifies gender inequalities and poses unique threats to their livelihood, safety, and why Ilaje community? Because coastal regions are more prone to the effects of climate change. Sea level rises, causes flooding in that community, marine plastic pollution, a lot of things. So the coastal region is, and of course, a lot of gender inequalities and social inequalities in those kind of region. Climate change is something that is very, so that is why we chose that community. So, and just looking at that, you can see that it is clear that it does affect people that are living in rural, remote, and conflict disaster-prone areas. So I'm just going to show pictures that are taken on site. These are just pictures, just to see some of the pictures that we took on site. And this particular picture, for instance, illustrates women on search for water, fish, and firewood. And when you look at that, you can see that the economic dependence of these people is on fishing, and that is already threatened by the extreme weather events of climate change. And so it's really, really hard for them. So if they are used to catching, for instance, 5 fish in a day, then you're looking at them catching maybe just 1 or or maybe nothing at all. So, and these are just, look at even the water they're fishing from. You can see the livelihood. So the research is focused on women, but you can kind of see an idea. And these pictures have been taken over time. And just by looking at, so I'm trying to show you something, there's a progression. If you look at it now, this is what the place looks like now. So it went from something like this to something like this. So this is seeing climate change in real time. This is the effects of it. Some of these pictures are taken from 2010 to about 2020. So in just the space of 10 years, you can see most of these places have been destroyed. And if you go there now, some of this is Ayetoro community. That community is going into extinction just because of the effects of climate change. And a lot of people are losing their livelihood, people are losing their homes and things like that. So you can see the effects of climate change in real time. So when people say, "Oh, it's not real," but these are photographs to show how it started and where it is now. You can see. So these are drone shots of the region. So you can't really see a lot of houses anymore because they've been submerged into the ocean. So yeah, so these are the effects, but we need action. And of course, at the Green Institute, we've come up with some ideas to see how we can help them adapt. So we've been able to design the houses that will be more climate resistant. So they are more but I wouldn't want to go more into that because of our time. But these are just some of the illustrations of what it can be. So now, what it is that at the Green Institute we have something called the Officially Green campaign. Very simple campaign where we get people to show their support for the environment and to show their support to tackle the various issues and various effects that are tackled that are associated with climate change. It can be anything for you. For you, being officially green can be planting trees. For you, being officially green can be water conservation. For another person, being officially green can be starting businesses that do not contribute to the overall emission of greenhouse gases. So whatever it is, officially green is personal to people, but the idea is as a collective, what do we need to do together to mitigate the effects of climate change? And these are people from different parts of the world showing their solidarity to say we're officially green. And by being officially green, we're making pledge to do the right things so that for our environment, for people, and for prosperity's sake. So what have we done at the Green Institute? Over the years, we have about 35,000 hours, over 35,000 hours of action. We've trained about 25,000 leaders, and a lot of people have taken the Green Pledge. About 2,900 people have taken the Green Pledge. We've hosted over 100 events at the Green Institute. So that's our impact so far. So the question is, for you to mitigate these effects of climate change, because what I'm trying to show you in this presentation is not to talk about the technical side of things, but to say that no matter your actions, no matter how little those actions are, can inspire people, and it can be a ripple effect. If everybody is doing their own part, it can actually contribute to the grand scheme of things. So according to a quote that I like by John Adams says that if your action inspires others to dream more, to learn more, and to do more, then you are a leader. So we can all be leaders in our various fields, in our various endeavors, in whatever it is that we're doing. It's just by simply taking action. And one thing I like this guy is from Kenya, and he won the Eco Hero Prize. And what he did was, when he heard about deforestation and plastic pollution, he started planting trees for goals. And he planted 11 trees for every goal scored in football. And now he's planted over 1,000 trees and now gotten about 5,000 youths to join him in that. So, and of course, we know Wangari Maathai. It's been, now if you go to Kenya, now Nairobi, Kenya, you see that lots of places, everywhere is green. Everywhere is extremely green. You see trees everywhere. The roads are nice. You can't find wastes on the floor. There are a lot of wildlife conservation. There's a lot of green. The Kenya is I mean, from Nairobi, Kenya is a typical example of what a green community should be. And it all started with someone long time ago, and even after she's dead, the legacy continues. An average Kenya plants flowers like it's just normal to them. It's just part of their everyday life. It's just something that they do without thinking about it. In fact, when you even visit Kenya universities, or you visit, for instance, when I visited Kenyatta University, the first thing is they asked me to plant a tree. So even as a guest, when you come into their community, you have to plant a tree, and then they name the tree after you. And so it's just something that it's in their system, or it is in their culture. You don't have to teach it, right? But it started with someone. So what is going? When I say going green is not just a trend, because I noticed that everybody is jumping on sustainability, going green, environment, and things like that. I mean, 10 years ago, it wasn't cool, but now in 2023, everybody's jumping on that trend. But the truth is, when it comes down to it, it is not a trend, it is a responsibility. And we owe it to ourselves, our children, and the planet to make conscious choices that prioritizes sustainability and protect our natural resources. And that's what it means to be officially green. So I don't know if people can hear me. I know this is a live stream, and what we do at the Green Institute is we have something called the Green Pledge. So I'm going to assume that everybody that is watching would like to join us to take the Green Pledge. So what we do is to take the Green Pledge, you put your right hands on your chest. So if you're watching right now, please, if you don't mind, if you can just put your right hands on your chest, although it's very much interesting when we all do it together. But let's pretend so let's have everybody. So you put your right hand on your chest and then you say after me. So whatever I say, you say. So if I say my name is Adenike, then you say your own name. Don't say my own name. Yeah. So I don't know if Emmanuel is still live. Maybe Emmanuel can join me. So that's
okay.
It's not like I'm the only one talking to myself. So join me to take the Green Pledge, and hopefully people in the audience are also watching, and hopefully they can also take the Green Pledge. So you put your right hand on your chest, Emmanuel. If you can have your camera on, I really appreciate that. All right, thank you. So right hand on the chest. So my name is Adenike.
My name is Emmanuel.
I will never drop that pure water. No, I'll be the one. When I say
okay, take after you. All right, that's awesome.
My name is Adenike.
My name is Emmanuel.
I will never drop that pure water sachet on the floor.
I will never drop that pure water sachet on the floor.
I will never drop that plastic bottle water on the floor.
I will never drop that plastic bottle water on the floor.
I will never drop that suya wrapper on the floor.
I will never drop that suya wrapper on the floor.
I will eat and drink moderately.
I will eat and drink moderately.
Because I know some people do not have access to food and water.
Because I know some people do not have access to food and water.
I will always switch off my appliances when not in use.
I will always switch off my appliances when not in use.
I will travel sustainably.
I will travel sustainably.
I will tell others about the green movement.
I will tell others about the green movement.
And above all,
I
pledge to be green.
I pledge to be green.
All right, so thank you guys. Let's go green. At this point, I would entertain questions from everyone. And then, yeah, thank you for having me today.
Wow, awesome. Thank you very much, Dr. Adenike, for this engaging session, and really appreciate every part of it. Dear participants, I believe it's been a great value for your time this morning. You can start sharing your questions using the comment section. Dr. is here to give more enlightenment about it. And I'm going to start from the aspect of the pledge. This is really engaging. If only we can adopt this into our into our lifestyle, our daily lifestyle and habits. And I'm going to say this. I remember that over a year now, I took a decision that no pure water sachet is going to I'm not going to dispose any pure water sachet. And to some extent, my family members, they were like, I'm going to be keeping pure water sachets. And I told them, okay, I'm going to start for a month. I will show you how I'm going to stretch it. I'm going to keep it. And for over a year, we've been keeping this pure water sachet. And I told them that I know a woman that's planetary that can use this pure water sachet to create different materials, clothing materials, shoes and bags. And it's very important for us to inculcate these sustainable lifestyles and habits. I would just like to pause here and also hope to have questions from our participants. But one of them asked the question that's regarding the Green Book, how they can have access to it. Doctor, I would love you to share more information about that.
Yes, so the Green Book then that we created was an experimental book that wasn't published. However, there's a new book that is called The Principles of Green and Sustainability Science, and it's available on Springer online. If you Google the Principles of Green and Sustainability Science, then you should be able to get information online on how to get it.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that wonderful feedback. I would just like to take some questions, though I can see people already taking they actually took the pledge alongside with us officially green. I pledge to be green. I just wish I can share my screen now, but please let's endeavor to drop our questions.
Yes, so also please, sorry, Emmanuel, so people can take the green pledge. It's on our website, greeninstitute.ng, and maybe /pledge, or it's on the page. So if you take the green pledge, you get a certificate in your mailbox. So you can take the green pledge and get a certificate in your mailbox.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Please, I would appreciate if you can share the link to your website for them to be able to have access to that.
So that's the Green Institute website. To take the green pledge, trying to say, just give me a second. I can pull that up. All right, so the green pledge. So I put that in the chat box. To take the green pledge online, and you get a certificate of greenness.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Doctor. I'm just reading comments from our participants in line to the green pledge. I pledge to be green. We also have a comment from Mohammed Ahmad Bakari. Okay. We have a comment. He said, I do use the pure water sachets to raise the trees I distribute to groups, individuals, and institutes. Wow.
Yeah, that's very impressive. Yeah, well done.
Yeah, and there's a question though. Okay, there's a question from Hamzat. Like an individual who wish to carry out tree planting project at different schools as part of Go Green, how can one have access to funds? Or let me just ask this way, because I believe access to funds is not the first thing. It's about you thinking how you can strategically partner and seek for support, or how can one easily execute this kind of project? Because we have actors across 32 states in Nigeria that are currently on this call, and they would also like to be part of this Go Green initiative. How can they easily get to build on this? Then there's another similar question from Stephen Smart. He asks, planting of trees seems to be a way of making the environment safe. However, is there no negative impact of much trees on to the environment? So those are the first two questions I will appreciate you attend to before we ask the other ones now.
All right, thank you very much for those wonderful questions. First, of course, planting of trees, I would say that first it starts with action. We have to start with action. So you have to first do something to show that you want to do the event, you want to make an impact. So first, you have to start to plant the flowers and trees yourself, which can be a personal donation from yourself, from your families, from your social media network. So that would be the first way to do it. Then you can now advance. You can now advance to. Can you guys hear me very well?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you, Doctor. All right, guys, just in a minute, Doctor is going to be back.
All right, can you hear me, guys? All right, great.
Thank you.
So sorry about that. So I said you can start by funding, personal fundraising. Two, you can collaborate with nonprofit organizations. Like you said, there are a lot of organizations that are doing this already, and they have tree planting projects. So what you can do is you can partner with them. We have Nature Conservation, Conservancy. We have the Tree for Future, and we have lots and lots of other organizations that do that. And we have the Abode Foundation. You can look into these foundations and see if you can get support, funding to get your tree planting. Of course, you can also go into government grants and programs, which is, I mean, that's a long stretch. And also there are a lot of crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter, like GoFundMe, that can support your tree planting projects. And this is a good option for individuals who want to start small scale projects in their communities. And also, I think there's also the pollination project. There's something called the pollination project. You can look into that. They have a lot of grants for things like that. So also the question about I think the question was about the negative, well, is there any negative impact? I mean, of course, you can never have too much of trees, but of course, there are also other things like, number one, like the competition for resources. So when you have too many trees in an area, it's not like not to plant trees. We just don't want to plant them in one, have too much of them in an area, because what they do now is that they compete with each other for resources, such as water, the nutrients. And this can lead to like slow growth rates of that tree. But it can increase the vulnerability to disease and pests. But the effects is on the tree. And also another negative effect would be the risk of wildfires. So if trees are not properly managed, they can create a high risk of wildfires. And this is especially true in areas with large amount of dead and decayed wood, which can now become fuel for fires. So that might be a negative impact. They can also, overabundance of tree in an area can negatively impact other types of vegetation. So if you have many trees, for instance, in a wetland area, then they can shade other plants that require more sunlight. So if you have so many trees, they can compete so that other trees might not have access to light for photosynthesis. And also soil degradation. So if you have too much trees and if it's not properly managed, can lead to soil degradation. But of course, I mean, these are like far-fetched. You can never go wrong with planting lots of trees.
Absolutely, you can never go wrong, and it can never be too much. And I sincerely appreciate the strategy which is being done in Nairobi, Kenya. How you have to, each and everyone needs to plant a tree, and it's being named after you. Because I could also remember one of my colleagues that did her postgraduate studies in Kenya. She showed that she planted a lot of trees, and these trees were named after her. And there are some other questions. There is a question from Akintola Kiemi. He asked, what are the bottlenecks experienced when selling the idea to school authorities? Also, how do you navigate your programs through academic calendar from inception? There is a question from Fortune. She asks, isn't driving hybrid or electric cars preferable to bicycles due to long distance? And the last question will be from Ifeolu Arud. How do you encourage people for planting trees? Because some persons felt it's a debt to their surroundings, like the leaves on the floor. So I would like you to share more light on this, Doctor.
Okay, so I didn't put those down, but I think the first one I caught was on let me tackle the electric one first. Let's talk about the electric one. Of course, I mean, you have to look at your environment. Everything, we're not saying that only ride bicycle. We have to look at it it's a collective effort. So you have to look at different actions, small little actions, of course, for shorter distances. And if you have a good bicycle infrastructure, then of course, it's better to use a bicycle. And that is why we encourage it on campus, because if you look at the Nigerian road network, for instance, it's not bicycle friendly, but within a campus environment, it's still very friendly. You can ride bicycle maybe from your class to your hostel and things like that. So for shorter distances, definitely the bicycle have more advantage. They're easy to park. You can easily navigate congested areas, is more cost effective. On the other hand, electric cars may be preferable for longer distances. That's where you have limited bicycle infrastructure, where the roads network are not good. But you also have to look at your environment. You know, Nigeria, for instance, I don't think most communities don't have 24 hours electricity, right? So, and most people might not be able to afford electric cars. If you can afford both, of course, good. That means you ride your hybrid or your electric cars, take it to work. The ideal thing would put your bicycle you put it at the back of your car, or there's hang it on your car, take it to work, park your car, then use your bicycle across campus. You just have to you can combine the two if you have a choice. But it also depends on your circumstances, and it also depends on your priorities. And a combination of both is very efficient approach to transportation. So,
all right, thank you.
Yeah.
So the very first question, let me ask the very first question again from Akitola Akiemi. He asks, what are the bottlenecks experienced while selling the idea to school authorities? Also, how do you navigate your programs through academic calendars from inception?
Yeah, the lot of bottlenecks, I mean, like as in many organizations, that is very peculiar to Nigeria. A lot of people don't like change, especially we like immediate benefits. So some people will say, oh, what do I stand to gain from this thing? Right, that's the first thing. And sometimes when it's not monetary gain, people don't want to participate. But I always also say that maybe those people are not your people, right? So you don't have to get everybody on your team. You just have to believe in what you do. First, what's the passion for it? Second, do you have what it takes? You have the knowledge, you have the skills to actually lead those things. So where the skills come in, for instance, when we're trying to get the Green Center in the College of Education, then the college will not, they said they are not interested in funding or even renovating the place. So what we did was, all the students, we came together. Do you know how to paint? Do you know carpentry work? Some students said, oh, I know how to do electricity work. We all came together and we're the one that actually renovated the center ourselves. So students that know how to do electric work, they did it. Students that know how to do carpentry work, they did the chairs and everything in those regions. We used a lot of sustainable materials, we used a lot of bamboos and things like that. And before you know it, the Green Center was there and students were able to use it. And that's when the school was not like, oh, we are proud of this project and things like that. So there's going to be people that will not believe in your ideas. Of course, funding will be a big one of the big issues, and just some people just thinking that you are doing too much. So we've always faced that, and that's in the system, and that's why even the country is not moving forward. And that's why the country is also losing some of its talents to advanced countries that appreciate people that do things like that. So we'll face that. And also academic calendar is very, very simple. You have your semesters, and so we usually have a meeting for the campus program anyway. And also some of the bottlenecks is actually what actually made us also transition from the Green Campus Initiative to the Green Institute, so that we can make some decisions as an institute, as opposed to being an initiative in a campus. And that's so sometimes you can use your bottleneck as an advantage. So when we saw that, okay, we're not really getting the impact that we would like to make in that community, it was okay, it was a good start. But we started scaling to other places. And we started making that decision because now we're an institute. So as an institute, as an independent institute, we're able to make such decisions without facing the bureaucracy of the system. And that's in terms of the academic calendar. It works well. So what we do is we have meetings once a week with the ministers. So we call them the ministers. So the ministers have different departments. So we have the Minister for Environment, we have the Minister for Environment and Climate Change, the Minister for Happiness, the Minister for Agriculture. So the ministers, they have their own ambassadors. So they work with the ambassadors to come up with programs. So we tell the ministers, you should have a program that you want to do for the academic year. So you come up with your program. We look at the program and see, is it reasonable? Is it too ambitious? Is it even possible? If there's no funding, are we still able to achieve those things? If the answer is yes, then we plan whatever we need to plan. So, and then we move forward. So that's how we've been able to manage the academic calendar. We meet once a week, and then each minister has his own portfolio and make sure that they work with the ambassadors to carry out their different tasks. And even when we meet once a week, it's not just to meet and do meetings, we also try to learn something new. And the Green Center is also open 6 days a week. So that means people can come in there and use the center as they would like. So that one is not a meeting. So people can come in, there are a lot of resources in the center. So people just come in and go out, and it's only open to we make it so that it's open to our ambassadors and our ministers only. Some students just even come into the center to study because they'll say, oh, their lecture halls are too crowded and things like that. So they come into the center to study. That's how we've been able to manage it.
Awesome. There is a last question from Ifeoluwa. I believe in some ways you've already answered it. She asked, how do you encourage people for planting trees? Because some persons feel it's a debt on their surrounding, like the leaves on the floor. Then there is another question from Sophia Sani. Is it safe to just go around planting trees? Is there no regard for the plans of a PVG, a master plan that have been put in place? Could any of this involve collaboration with the city planners?
Okay, so planting of trees can never be a bad thing for the environment. If you have trees, if you have leaves in the environment, that's the good thing, because it encourages what we call nutrient cycling. When leaves fall on the ground, they decompose and release nutrient back into the soil. And these nutrients can now be taken by other plants and to help them to support the growth of new vegetation. So when you have plants, leaves on the floor, it's going to decompose, it's going to decay by itself, which is actually good for the environment. It also helps in carbon sequestration. It helps in soil moisture retention. It helps in habitat creation. So it's not a bad thing for the environment. It has more benefits. Of course, we can think about the debt in terms of blocking of storms, blocking of drains, or creating a slip. Maybe you have a leaf on the floor and you slip and you fall down. But of course, it's also our duty to make sure that our environment is clean. So I think the benefits far outweighs the negative impact. The last question, I didn't quite get what I think the question was about collaborations, and I think I've actually kind of...
This has to do with planning based on looking at the master plans for cities. He was asking, is it safe to just go around to plant a tree?
Okay, yeah, of course, you can't just go around to plant a tree. I mean, you have to, I think people should start from whatever community they have. If you're using a campus community, you have somewhere in the campus that is allocated, you can just plant there. If you want to go into your city, that's a different ballgame. You might need to talk with the local government chairman or your local government to see what are the permissions that need to be taken to do that. You might need to, of course, work with a planner if you have to, but that's if you're doing it on a government level, on a bigger project level, then yes, you need to think about it. You need to be strategic. Even what are the types of trees, not just planting any kind of tree. What is the function of that tree? What function do you want that tree to do in that particular environment? So that is what will determine the type of tree that you are even going to plant. If you're talking about flowers, what kind of flowers will beautify that environment? Because if you're planting something that doesn't fit right into it, then visually it might not be appealing. Because also another thing for trees and flowers is for it to be aesthetically pleasing, which can also help with mental health. So another thing about planting of trees is not just about carbon capturing or giving us a lot of oxygen in the environment, but it also helps with our mental health. If you see trees around, there are some trees that you see or some flowers that you see around you that becomes very pleasing, and you just mentally, it helps you adjust yourself and gives you very good mental health. So yeah, you might need to work with your local government or your city if it's on the ground scheme of things. But if it's just planting in your house or planting in a school, then that might not be necessary.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll just share a little experience that I think that's like 3 years ago on a tree planting project we want to do along the Bodija axis of Oyo State, and we had to write to the Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Agriculture were involved. And Ministry of Environment told us that we can't plant in between the roads because of their cables. They already have a long-term sustainability plan for the roads, and they are to tell us the specific locations which we can plant. And also, I also advise each and every actor for every community project you want to embark on, stakeholder analysis and engagement is very key. Before you engage. Thank you so much for the insightful session we had with you today. Actors are looking forward to connect with you to know how they can be part of Green Institute. We've already shared the website, and I also like to seek on their behalf which mode you prefer they can communicate with you. Is it on LinkedIn, maybe on phone number, via phone, or via email? Which of these will you prefer, Doctor?
All right, great, thank you. Always looking forward to connecting, to learning from people, and also to collaborating for us to contribute to sustainability efforts. So please, please feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn. I'll put in my LinkedIn. in the chat box, just briefly, just now. Just give me a second. And also, please feel free to also send me an email, personal email, at the email address that I've provided in the chat box. So,
all right. Thank you very much, Dr. Adenike. On behalf of the leadership of Sustainable Development Solutions Network Nigeria, I really want to appreciate you. And we are even so glad that you are also part of the network. And over years, you've been doing so great across board and globally. Really appreciate your impact. And really appreciate the time you've taken to facilitate today's session despite your very busy schedule. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks, Emmanuel. Thank you for inviting me. I had a good time. And please, let's keep doing, contributing. Even if it's not encouraging, let's just keep doing whatever we can in our own little way to contribute to our environment, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. Thank you for having me. Have a lovely day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And I will just use this to share an invitation to each and everyone on the call. We are going to be having the Eco 30 Sustainable Living Challenge, which is going to commence tomorrow. And the 30 days challenge that has to do with various lifestyles and practices that has to do with sustainable, the three dimensions: economic, social, and environmental sustainability. Feel free to be part of this. The registration link is always available. Right about now, we just like we end today's session for each and everyone to go and prepare and come back for the assessment. The assessment is going to take just like 20 minutes or so, but maximum it shouldn't take more than 30 minutes. And after the assessment, you are going to be able to know your score instantly. Today ends the phase 1 of this project, and the next phase is the community development project, which is going to span from 1st of April to the 2nd week of May. The program manager are going to share more updates with you. Please, should you have any issue or area of concern, kindly reach out to your state representative who is going to contact this program manager, or please send an email to nigeria@sdsnyouth.org. And please, it's very important you follow the network social media platform to get more instant updates about opportunities across board in development space. I believe it's been a wonderful session this morning, and we also want to appreciate our facilitator once again. And it's been a whole wonderful session all through the 5 weeks of the Masterclass session for the Climate Actors Accelerator Programme. This first spot for the year. We look forward to a more productive session ahead. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the day. Okay, I can see someone asking, please, what's the nature of the assessment? The assessment is let me just say, is an open-ended question which covers the entire part of the masterclass sessions and basic things you need to know about climate and environment. And it's basically a knowledge evaluation for you to know if at all you've studied and you've learned a lot of things during the masterclass session. So please go and refresh, and the link is going to be shared on the WhatsApp platform and all other community platforms. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.